Honorable Indonesian Minister of Environment and Forestry, KLHK, Madam Dr. Insinyur Siti Nurbaya Bakar, MSc, Honorable Minister of Infrastructure and Water Management, Madam Cora van Nieuwenhuizen, Honorable Netherlands Ambassador to Indonesia and the Indonesian Ambassador to the Netherlands, the Director General for Climate Change, KLHK, the Climate Envoy of Netherlands Ministry of Economics Affairs and Climate Policy. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow colleagues and participants, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. A very good afternoon for all of you in Indonesia and a splendid good morning for all of you in the Netherlands. Hello and welcome to the Winter 2021 event. I am Irina Rafliana from the Indonesian Institute of Sciences, or LIPI, and I'm here with Professor Ruard Ganzevoort, but would only be best if Ruard also introduce yourself, Ruard.
Good morning, selamat siang, goedemorgen. Great to have you all here on this wonderful occasion on the Dutch-Indonesian cooperation to the Climate Adaptation Challenge. We are looking forward to have a very special program today, in which we have welcome remarks by the two ambassadors, keynote speeches by the two ministers, the announcement of the Alumni Challenge, and then after that we will have some videos and then a panel discussion on what we can do with multi-stakeholders in meeting the climate challenges of our times. Everything will be recorded in this session, so it can also be watched afterwards. Irina.
Before we step into the addresses from the ambassadors, may I also share a bit of a background of the event. On the 25th and 26th of January this year, about 18,500 people gathered virtually as a global community at the Climate Change Adaptation Summit. Among these global communities are world leaders, ministers, high-level officials, and international organizations, together with academia, civil society, and youth representatives to attend the Climate Adaptation Summit to accelerate adaptation and mitigation action and bind each other with ambitious commitments within the so-called Adaptation Action Agenda. After a successful winter event last year, this winter or Week of Indonesian-Netherlands Education and Research event, it will take a concrete follow-up from the Climate Action Summit by setting the Alumni Challenge, which we launch officially today.
The program that we are going to experience with you has been prepared by two of our academic leads, Professor Philip Ward from Amsterdam and Pak Jan Sopa Heluwakan from Indonesia, and they've contributed greatly to bring together the speakers for today. We also work together with NUFIC, of course, and the winner cooperation system with the embassies and between the two countries aims to not only build on a strong history that we have together, but also on the future that we meet in this planet, where meeting the climate challenges is one of the big challenges for every country in the world, and only by doing this together we can create a sustainable future. So it's for that reason that we are extremely grateful for the opportunity to meet with leaders from government, from the corporate sector, from the academic sector, and also from civil society. I already said a little bit about the program of today. So after the keynotes and the welcomes and the keynotes, and of course the announcement of the Alumni Challenge, which will be an important moment with the Director General for Climate Change from the Indonesian Ministry of Environment and Forestry, and also the Climate Envoy for the Kingdom of the Netherlands. And then afterwards, the panel discussion, where you can also put your questions in the Q&A, and we try to bring that into the conversation.
Oh, lovely. So following to the next agenda, we'll be welcoming remarks. We would like to invite Mr. Lambert Kriens, Netherlands Ambassador to Indonesia, to deliver his speech. Please be invited.
Thank you very much, Mbak Irina, Pak Ruard. Selamat siang, menjelang sore. Goedemorgen, good morning, everyone. It's a great pleasure for me being here, being part of this important event, which we called A Journey of Hope for a Climate Resilient Future. Let me start by introducing our honorable VIP guests of today, which we are actually very proud of, that they are willing to join us today. Jadi yang terhormat, Bu Menteri Lingkungan Hidup dan Kehutanan, Ibu Siti Nurbaya Bakar, your Honorable Minister Cora van Nieuwenhuizen, Minister of Infrastructure and Water. I also have the pleasure to introduce my friend Dubes Indonesia ke Belanda, Pak Mayervas. And I also I'm honored to introduce our climate envoy of the Netherlands, Mr. Marcel Beukeboom. And then, of course, a very warm welcome to everyone else who is participating today. Bapak Ibu hadirin virtual yang saya hormati. Thanks so much for joining us. Now, this is a special event, and as it was said already, it has a strong link with the Climate Adaptation Summit. The Climate Adaptation Summit, which was held in January last year, which came up with a very strong agenda, the Adaptation Action Agenda. Together with the Ministry of Environment and Forestry in Indonesia, we were sitting, okay, how can we make this agenda relevant for Indonesia, relevant for the Netherlands? What can we do to give it a follow-up, a concrete follow-up? And then we basically came up with two ideas. And it's actually very encouraging to see that the ministry is engaged in many more concrete ideas. But today we will be having two of these ideas. The first one is linked to what happened already in November last year. That was called the Week of Indonesian Netherlands Education and Research. We thought it might be helpful to link Indonesian and Dutch scientists, researchers, members of the scientific community to the issue of climate adaptation and resilience. So that's what we are going to do today, as a concrete follow-up to the Climate Adaptation Summit, but also as a concrete follow-up to Winner. The other event, which we will be organizing today, is linked to the presence of so many Indonesians who have studied in the Netherlands. We call them the alumni network. More than 20,000 Indonesians have studied in the Netherlands. Some of them a very long time, some of them for short courses, but together is a strong network. So how can we link the alumni to the issue of climate adaptation? Therefore, today we will see the launch of the Alumni Challenge, and you will hear much more about it, but I'm very happy and also quite thrilled actually that this is taking place today. Now, my own very modest contribution is that I'm wearing this batik shirt. You can't see it now, but if I'm standing, you see this is a bird, basically two birds. And this is the national symbol of the Netherlands. It's the grutto. In English, it's the black-tailed godwit. I don't know the word in English, but in Indonesian, but because maybe it doesn't exist here in Indonesia. But this bird is basically becoming very rare. It's becoming rarer and rarer and rare every year. Whereas until 10, 50 years ago, it was quite common. And that's the result of changing land use patterns, and it may be the result of climate change in the future as well. So for me, this is a little symbol which shows much more important and much more serious underlying threat. And that's, I think, what we are talking about today. So without further ado, I'd like to give back the floor to you, by Irina, Pak Ruwart, and very happy to, together with my friend Pak Mayervas from The Hague, from the Indonesian ambassador from The Hague, to open this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Geens. And we're also happy to have indeed Ambassador Mayervas from Indonesia to The Hague, to the Netherlands. Selamat datang di Belanda, selamat datang di sini. The floor is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi dari Indonesia, Pak Lambert. Saya mohon maaf tidak pakai batik karena dingin, Pak. Sorry. Ibu Menteri Siti Nurbaya Bakar, selamat pagi Ibu. Salam hormat dari Den Haag. Minister Cora van Nieuwenhuizen of Netherlands, Ambassador Lambert, dear speaker and participants. I would like to join Ambassador Lambert to welcome you to this winner event as a follow-up of the Climate Adaptation Summit 2021 hosted by Netherlands. This winner event is essential to create awareness, explore ideas, and form close cooperation between Indonesia and the Netherlands to make climate adaptation works for everyone, to leave no one behind. First of all, I would like to congratulate the Netherlands for the successful of the summit. I personally participated at the high-level opening session of the summit. In my view, the summit was able to create global awareness to accelerate adaptation action. It's involved a lot of leaders, including President Joko Widodo, more than 50 ministers, including Ibu Siti Nurbaya, and more than 300 speakers, I think, and more than 18,000 global participants. So Climate Adaptation Summit was held during the world struggle to face the challenges of COVID-19. It is very timely to remind us that the world economic recovery post-COVID-19 needs to include the aspect of climate adaptation to be resilient to the impact of the climate change. As stated by President Joko Widodo during the summit, the impact of the climate change are further complicated by COVID-19 pandemic. Hence, we all must take extraordinary steps. President Joko Widodo mentioned 4 extraordinary steps that can be taken by countries. All countries must fulfill their nationally determined contribution or NDC. We must mobilize all community potential, and we must strengthen global partnership, and we must continue to promote sustainable development. Apart from steps taken by each country, I wish to underline that no country can work alone in tackling the challenges. It is therefore during the summit, the President Joko Widodo called for all countries to multiply global climate change action through solidarity, collaboration, and collective global leadership. With this spirit, I welcome and fully support this winner event to foster Indonesia-Netherlands collaboration and to support the implementation of Adaptation Action Agenda. I look forward for a fruitful result of this event. Thank you. Stay safe, stay healthy. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih, Ambassador Maya Vaz. Ibu Bapak terhormat, at this moment I will give the floor to Minister van Nieuwenhuizen. Cora van Nieuwenhuizen is the Minister of the Dutch government for infrastructure and water management, the Minister of Infrastructure and Water Management. And as you may all know, we are waiting for the Dutch elections, which will happen next week, which also means that our minister has, of course, many other things and responsibilities at this moment. But we are very happy to have her keynote speech available for you, which we will have right now.
Dr. Siti Nurbaya Bakar, Ambassador Grijns, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for inviting me to this Post-Climate Adaptation Summit 2021 event, organized by the Dutch Embassy in Jakarta. Unfortunately, I cannot join you in person today, but I'm happy to have an opportunity to speak a few words via video message. At the Climate Adaptation Summit in January, President Joko Widodo said, "The impact of climate change is right before us, especially for archipelagic countries such as Indonesia." I couldn't put it better. This is a reality check. Unless we act now, it's game over for global society. Climate change is one of the major challenges of our time. Not only do we need to limit the greenhouse effect, we also need to respond to the inevitable impacts of climate change. The Paris Agreement set clear goals for both mitigation and adaptation. It stresses the unprecedented scale of the challenge we face, a challenge we can only deal with successfully if we join forces. The good news is that adaptation will enhance growth and development, create business opportunities, reduce inequalities, and protect nature. But effective adaptation is conditional on cooperation and partnership, on taking account of climate resilience when investing in infrastructure. And that's why this event today is so important. Practical and concrete follow-ups, action tracks to build back better and create a more resilient future. Our interdependence has never been more clear. Communities worldwide need to join forces and learn from each other. We all need to act, because the impact of local action, or the lack of it, will be felt on the other side of the planet. So we all recognize the urgent need to act, and thus the need for shared knowledge and expertise. I support further collaboration between our two countries to limit the effects of climate change and enhance climate adaptation. Exactly 1 year ago, I visited Jakarta and Surabaya. And since then, the COVID-19 pandemic has forced us to organize meetings and visits online. Like the online Climate Adaptation Summit 2021, which the Netherlands hosted on the 25th and 26th of January. It offered a unique opportunity to connect initiatives, solutions and challenges, to build back better and accelerate adaptation action. Over 18,500 registered participants attended. More than 30 world leaders, 50 government ministers and 50 international organizations joined scientists and private sector, civil society and youth representatives. They joined to pool their efforts, share knowledge, generate action and drive the agenda towards a climate resilient future in 2030. I very much appreciated the participation of Indonesia, one of the convening countries of the Global Commission on Adaptation. It wasn't just a one-off opportunity. Today's high-level meeting underscores the vitality of the commitment to action. It's been said countless times, Indonesia and the Netherlands have a lot in common when it comes to the effects of climate change. Water management, delta management and coastal management have always been important pillars in the collaboration between our countries. And in the coming years, this cooperation will continue, with a focus on addressing water-related sustainable development goals. The Netherlands aims to support Indonesia's national priorities and national medium-term development plan in these areas, as well as our own international water ambition. Lessons learned and good practices, such as building with nature in Demak, will resonate in these future activities. Promoting transfer and exchange of know-how and bringing parties together to take good ideas from the design table to practical application. Working in harmony with nature and building communities. It's the new approach, not curbing national forces but using them as a part of the solution. Through the DUTEP projects with Jakarta Capital City and the Living Labs Water, we're sharing, multiplying and applying our practical know-how. The network of alumni of Dutch universities in Indonesia comprises over 20,000 people, eager to exchange ideas and collaborate with this bilateral network. They can help strengthen awareness of the substance and potential of the Global Adaptation Action Agenda. So I welcome the launch of the Winner Alumni Challenge today. We need the involvement and creativity of this generation to come up with fresh ideas to promote awareness via outreach campaigns on the Climate Adaptation Agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, our conversation has only just begun, and in the years ahead, as we jointly pursue our common goals with regard to climate adaptation, our cooperation will only become stronger. I wish you a constructive day, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We are truly appreciative for the presence and support of Madam Van Nieuwenhuizen in spirit with us today. It is with great pleasure to announce that Her Excellency Dr. Insinyur Siti Nurbaya Bakar, MSc, Minister of Environment and Forestry of the Republic of Indonesia, or Kementerian Lingkungan Hidup dan Kehutanan RI, is here with us today. Reflecting on the strong bonds between Netherlands and Indonesia, not only at the state level, but also at personal level, Ibu Siti Nurbaya Bakar is a proud alumni of Twente University. She was graduated in the Netherlands in 1988 from the prestigious International Institute for Aerospace Survey and Earth Sciences, or ITC. Her knowledge, experiences, and wisdoms empowers her to achieve greatly as a woman leader and continuously address complex and highly challenging tasks on the national, transnational, and global environmental forestry, including climate changes that induce environmental disaster within her mandate in the past 7 years. We take note, Ibu, on your principal thoughts during the Climate Adaptation Summit at the Ministerial Dialogue January 2021, in which humanity are undetachable from adaptation actions and relates directly with the national resilience. We are very pleased and honored to invite Ibu Siti Nurbaya Bakar to take the stage and further share her inspirational keynotes. Silakan, Ibu.
Terima kasih, thank you Iriana. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Excellencies, Minister Cora van Nieuwenhuizen, I do thank you very much for appreciating President Joko Widodo. Ambassador Lambert Grins, Ambassador Meyer Vaz, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, dames en heren, goedemorgen. First of all, I would like to extend my appreciation to the Dutch Embassy for convening the winner program early this year addressing the issue of adaptation to climate change. I believe the winner program is one of the beautiful moments when we happily share collaboration, research, and education between our two countries, not only between the two governments, but also the two societies. 2 years ago, I spoke before the reception of King Days of the Netherlands in Jakarta, and I would love to repeat my words that I learned from the Netherlands, as mentioned also by Iriana, along with the great memories of my life in ITC Enschede, which later becomes part of my life in Enschede, which later become part of University of Twente in 1985, and I back in 1987 to 1988 when I did my master degree. There I learned science and on rural and land ecology, which have proven very instrumental in my work as Minister of Environment and Forestry now. I also learned the social life of the Dutch through my sporting activities and my interaction with the neighborhoods, where I saw how water management is working very well, how seabird conservation is well governed by the government, and even how a new province is developed through reclamation process. I witnessed that the Dutch government is very efficient in achieving the prosperity of its citizens. I miss the Netherlands, I miss Enschede. Taking this good opportunity, please accept my personal best wishes to the people of the Netherlands for the preparation of the election day next week. It is now my great honor to share Indonesia's views on the climate adaptation actions, as well as milestones that we already achieved in making adaptation to climate change works in Indonesia. Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, we have already felt the impact of climate change. The occurrence of more frequent extreme climates with higher rainfall and longer droughts indicates that there needs to be a change in development planning. Development without considering climate change will increase material and non-material losses. Indonesia is a country that is vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. Natural disasters related to hydrometeorology are increasingly frequent and cause economic and non-economic losses. This pressure is getting heavier with the COVID-19 pandemic, which has paralyzed in global economy and may potentially slow climate change actions down on the ground. This situation leads to the awareness that it is more important to manage susceptibility. We need to adapt to a new normal global health landscape and a more extreme climate simultaneously. As an archipelagic country, Indonesia is very affected by the impact of climate change. 90% of the natural disasters that occur in Indonesia are hydrometeorological related disasters, which are greatly influenced by climate change. This condition is also a challenge in itself for agricultural production, which in turn will affect economic condition and social life. Therefore, Indonesia regards climate change adaptation as an important as climate change mitigation in its NDC, in which to achieve the three areas of resilience, namely, first, economic resilience, secondly, social and livelihood resilience, and thirdly, ecosystem and landscape resilience. On the economic resilience, we cover the issue of sustainable agricultural practices, renewable energy, and sustainable consumption and production. We promote sustainable food estates responding to food crisis risk. We implement circular economy by utilizing waste for industrial raw material and recently started to substitute coal for electricity. On the social and livelihood resilience, we cover community awareness and preparedness for natural disasters, early warning system, public participation, and law enforcement. On the ecosystem and landscape resilience, we address integrated watershed and marine ecosystem management, social forestry, and promoting climate-friendly cities and villages. In 2020, we have planted 15,000 hectares of mangrove and to be scaled up to 600,000 hectares. We also prioritize climate-friendly village program or PROCLIM, which involve communities' participation at the site level. Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, from the regulatory side, action on adaptation is legally mandated by our law on environmental protection and management and stated in the 2020 to 2024 midterm development plan. The adaptation NDC roadmap is being developed to provide direction towards the achievement of the adaptation NDC by 2030. Guidelines and tools have been prepared in the context of implementing climate change adaptation at the site level. The PROCLIM is one of the national programs managed by the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, which aims to increase the involvement of the community and other stakeholders to strengthen climate change adaptation capacity and reduce greenhouse gas emissions, as well as to provide recognition of climate change actions that have been implemented that improve welfare at the local level in accordance with regional conditions. Currently, there are approximately 3,000 locations of proclaim in 33 provinces in 247 district cities, and it is expected that by 2024, it can be escalated to 20,000 locations through 8 strategies, namely strengthening local government capacity, strengthening community capacity, forging multi-stakeholders partnerships, encouraging leadership at the local level, encouraging stakeholders' commitment, disseminating success, increasing the development and adaptation of appropriate technology, and encouraging the optimization of potential funding sources. For this particular matter, I would like to invite and collaborate all of the Netherlands alumni in the Kampung Iklim program. In funding our climate actions, we have established BPDLH, so-called an environment fund, which will function to manage domestic, international, public, and private funds for the environment and climate change. As we believe that large resources are required to increase our capacity in achieving resilience to climate change, the establishment of BPDLH is expected to support the achievement of NDCs. Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia is diverse, not only in terms of biological diversity, but also cultural diversity. As one of the most ethnically diverse societies, Indonesia consists of 1,300 ethnic groups that are native to the archipelago. These diverse societies are our strength in achieving our development goal, as well as environmental management, where there are local knowledge and wisdoms that can be promoted. To facilitate information, knowledge, local wisdom, and best practices exchanges for stakeholders of various professions and diverse community groups, youth, interfaith group, academia, activists, official, businesses, etc., we have developed a weekly multi-stakeholder forum, so-called Climate Corner, which is very active in the last 5 years. The Climate Corner is a multi-stakeholders discussion forum that has been present since early 2016. This forum has become a forum for discussion between related ministries, institutions, professional associations, business actors, academics, and the general public to actualize and articulate climate change policies, as well as disseminate disseminate information on best practices as effort for managing climate change in all sectors. During 2020, the Climate Corner had been able to involve citizens from 34 provinces in Indonesia and show real communities action at the local level in managing climate change through 42 discussion sessions, almost all of which were conducted virtually, involving 150 resources persons. Climate Corner social media channels are growing with almost 5,800 followers at Instagram and 613 YouTube followers. The Climate Corner also cooperates with youth in commemorating the 2020 Youth Pledge Day with the theme Climate Change We Pledge. This event was able to bring 70% of millennial participants aged between 17 to 20 years of age. The government of the Netherlands, through its embassy in Jakarta, is welcome to take part in the Climate Corner program and even to collaborate in the real action of climate change control. Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, to conclude my remark, let me emphasize the importance of adaptation and the needs for across sectors and even between countries. Commitment, continuous effort on adaptive and low carbon technological innovation, as well as financial and capacity building support are needed to better beat climate resilience and emission reductions towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Actually, I should like to have a little bit more of your attention now for watching a short movie concerning program Kampung Iklim in Indonesia. And don't forget, I invite all the Netherlands alumni to involve and collaborate in this program. For your kind attention, I thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Climate change has become a real environmental phenomenon. Despite of our awareness, it also becomes one of the biggest threats for human beings in the future. In Indonesia, more than 2,000 villages and towns have done some anticipations regarding the effect of this climate change through a national program called ProKlim or Program Kampung Iklim.
Komitmen nasional kita. Jadi yang pertama kita menyadari negara Indonesia adalah negara kepulauan, banyak pulau-pulau kecil yang ada di sana. Dengan adanya peningkatan suhu temperatur bumi ini akan berpengaruh terhadap kenaikan permukaan air laut. Ini sehingga akan berpengaruh pada pulau-pulau kecil kita ini. Nah, oleh karena itu kita concern berupaya menjadi bagian dari global dalam rangka penurunan emisi gas rumah kaca ini.
Margorukun Town has actively become Desa Kampung Iklim since 2017. At the moment, this town is a pioneer and pilot for creating other climate town in South Manokwari.
Margorukun menjadi percontohan sebagai kampung iklim, diharapkan bisa menjadi stimulan untuk kampung-kampung lain mengikut jejak dari Margorukun untuk menjadi kampung iklim. Dan itu terbukti di tahun 2019 ini terbentuk 6 kampung iklim lagi, yang kemudian 3 kampung diverifikasi pada tahun ini.
In energy utilization, villagers in Margorukun use homemade safe energy stove. Less firewood needed, but very high heat.
Irit kayu.
3 kayu sudah matang.
Sudah matang. 3 kayu ini sudah mendidih ini. Ya mungkin 10 menit ini baru saja, terus saya cuci piring tadi ini sudah mendidih. Irit minyak tanah, baru minyak tanah kan mahal, Pak, susah dicari. Habis ini cari kayu-kayu itu untuk ini. Kalau pakai kompor juga minyak tanahnya banyak. Kalau pakai tungku begini kan irit minyak tanah juga.
Kelompok ini kita bekerja sama dengan anggota dan pengurus ini selalu koordinasi dengan masyarakat untuk bagaimana caranya tidak terjadi banjir. Sampah-sampah itu kita bersihkan dari parit-parit itu setiap hari Jumat kita kerja bakti. Jadi mereka punya kesadaran yang tinggi masyarakat ini. Jadi makanya tiap ini tidak ada banjir di Margorukun ini.
Not far from Margorukun village, there are welcome beaches and mangrove forests. Villagers call it Oransbari Mangrove Forest. This mangrove forest has approximately 384.76 hectares. This is the largest mangrove forest in South Manokwari district.
Kabupaten Manokwari Selatan. Ini kami lagi berupaya untuk nanti mendorong lewat SK Bupati Kabupaten Manokwari Selatan ke Kementerian Lingkungan Hidup, Kehutanan dan Lingkungan Hidup, sehingga kawasan ini yang luasnya 384,76 hektar ini bisa ditetapkan sebagai kawasan Tahura, Taman Hutan Rakyat, yang tentunya mempunyai manfaat sangat besar terhadap menunjang pro-iklim.
Tetapi sudah mengikut sertakan. Ya, di tahun 2018 kami sempat mendapatkan 3 kampung di Orsbari yang mendapatkan penghargaan dari pemerintah pusat.
Hopefully in the coming days, all villagers, especially in the South Manokwari and in general in the West Papua and in Indonesia, will be able to have more benefits from Kampung Iklim program. Sustainable nature, happy villagers, climate change effect is resolved.
Terima kasih Ibu Menteri for your very inspiring speech and also for the beautiful clip that you showed us, a clip that clarifies that what is important is not only the beautiful words on the level of government, but also the concrete actions that government can also stimulate, but that have to be made concrete together in the cooperation with the corporate sector, with local communities, and so on and so on. And I think this is in that spirit also maybe fitting this beautiful week where we first celebrated International Women's Day, that we had speeches from 2 powerful and insightful women, the 2 ministers from both countries. We're grateful to Ibu van Nieuwenhuizen and Ibu Siti for their contributions in which they focused on resilience, mitigation, and adaptation. And I specifically liked what Ibu Siti said, that resilience has to do with economic, social, and also environmental resilience. And to stimulate that, we need this combination of technology and innovation. We need governance, we need creativity. But in a way, she suggested we also need a form of friendship and cooperation. And especially they both stressed the value, the importance of the younger generation, of alumni, of our cooperation, also in education, and the young people who will bring about the new and creative ideas that we need for this mitigation and this adaptation. And it is in that light that we also are happy to announce today the Alumni Challenge. The Alumni Challenge will be announced by the introduction by Mr. Marcel Beukeboom, who is the climate envoy for the Kingdom of the Netherlands at the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate Policy of the Netherlands, and also by Dr. Rwanda Agung Sugardiman, MS, Director General for Climate Change at the Indonesian Ministry of Environment and Forestry. He is also an alumni from the Netherlands, from Wageningen University, and the jury for the Winner 2021 Challenge. Gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Professor Ganse-Voort. Excellencies, colleagues, dear friends, it's with great pleasure to be at this event, and I think I should already hand out 1 prize, and that's the prize for the best acronym. Winner is just, well, a winner. And it's my task and also honor to launch the Winner Alumni Challenge today, together with Director General Mr. Sugardiman. And this competition, it has been said by previous speakers, it challenges alumni to come up with creative ideas to promote awareness on the Global Adaptation Action Agenda, which was launched at the Climate Adaptation Summit earlier this year in the Netherlands. The 2 winners will receive €5,000 each to roll out their campaign idea over the summer of this year. Before Mr. Sugardiman and I start counting down to the launch, I want to share a few thoughts with you. As a climate envoy, it is my task to help implement the Paris Climate Agreement. And you are most probably aware of the 3 main objectives of the agreement. First of all, limit global temperature rise to a maximum of 1.5 degrees, adapt to an already changing climate. We have crossed the threshold of 1 degree since pre-industrial levels already, so this is an important goal. And align all financial flows in order to reach these goals. These goals are binding goals, and we have to do everything we can to reach them. That is what our political leaders have signed for in 2015. And they are also collective goals. They cannot be reached by any country alone, so we have to work together. Of the three objectives, most attention goes to the temperature goal. Of course, this is the most important one. If we don't stop our own destructive behavior, climate change and environmental degradation will accelerate. But for very vulnerable countries like Indonesia and Netherlands, the importance of the second goal on adaptation should not be underestimated. It is for that reason that we hosted the Climate Adaptation Summit, why we divide our climate finance equally between mitigation and adaptation, and why we organize this winter challenge. Looking at the future, a future that will be impacted by climate change, we know we have to do things differently. Many solutions are known and just need to be implemented. Think of the replacement of fossil fuels by renewable energy, or the introduction of drought-resistant seeds, or some of the solutions that we just saw in the clip. Others need to be invented and developed. And for that, it is not wise to draw upon our existing systems and networks alone. We need new perspectives, and we need to join forces across disciplines and across borders. Many solutions are out there. They just need to be tapped into. Call it a crowdsourcing of ideas. For people to realize they can contribute to the bigger scheme of things, they need to know what that picture is, why the climate around them is changing, and what their own role is. Building awareness is a necessary start. Education, an unmissable condition. Adaptation is a difficult term for being able to sustain your livelihood in changing circumstances. Therefore, it's very context specific. With climate change being influenced by human behavior, the relationship between people and their surroundings is changing as well. The relationship has become a two-way street. We could say that the best form of adaptation is mitigation. This requires that people are able to zoom out and see the bigger picture. How to create this ability is one of the questions for the participants of the challenge to answer. As former students in the Netherlands, you have experienced different perspectives. You have been able to look at your own country from a distance. What this can lead to has just been illustrated by Minister Siti Nurbaya. That is the kind of experience the Winter Challenge wants to tap into. As former students, you also know what the crucial role of young people can be and how adaptive they are, also in their thinking. So I can only encourage you to include young perspectives into your submissions. I wish you all possible success and really look forward to see what you come up with. Thank you.
Thanks, Pak Marcel. I would like to see that the alumni are becoming community mover in the raising awareness of adaptation to climate change, as well as in innovating techniques, method, and concept for appropriate technology to improve our resilience. Yeah.
So then, thank you very much, Pak Marcel Bukeboom and also Pak Ruanda Agung Sugardiman. It is very clear and also inspiring to respond to the challenges on how, as alumni of the Netherlands, we can actually have a more broad view outside of our internal scope of looking at these issues regarding with climate change, adaptation, and action, and also the invitation to have a look into more closer to what Ibu Siti Nurbaya had already addressed. So thank you very much for that. I would like to invite then Pak Marcel Bukeboom and also Pak Ruanda Agung Sugardiman to start the countdown of the Winter Challenge 2021. So shall we start then?
All right.
Yeah, okay. We should start in a few seconds with the upcoming video, and all together, everyone participating in this event, we can jointly follow or play the or announce the countdown all together. So let's start. 5, 4,
4, 3, 2, 1.
Go.
So that is the challenge.
Yeah.
And we look forward to have wonderful contributions within 1 month, because that is the deadline from the alumni. So all of you watching, please take your opportunity and bring in the best ideas that you have. You have 1 month to contribute those ideas.
Yeah.
Thank you at this moment to Mr. Marcel Bukkeboom. Thank you to Dr. Wanda Agung Sugardiman. We also thank our Minister, Cor van Nieuwhuis from the Netherlands, and Ibu Siti from Indonesia. We also thank at this moment the Ambassador Lambert Grijns from the Netherlands to Indonesia, and Pama Yarvas from Indonesia to the Netherlands. Thank all of you for your contribution to this part of the high-level event. We will also continue now with the panel discussion after some videos of promising Indonesian-Dutch collaborations on the urban and the rural level. But thank you all for your contributions to this first part of the meeting and the announcement of the winner challenge.
Thank you.
Thank you. With great pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you allemaal.
I think we will now move to the videos on collaboration.
Van Oort has been active in dredging and marine contracting projects in Indonesia for over a century. It is important for us to share our knowledge and expertise. We believe that sustainable solutions for climate adaptation can only be implemented by working together with stakeholders, like the local community, the government, and knowledge and business partners. And our participation in DUTEP and EcoShape is in line with this approach.
Building with Nature Indonesia. Communities in northern Java are suffering from coastal erosion. With the local community, a Building with Nature solution was found. Temporary semi-permeable structures were built to dampen the waves and capture sediment. These structures create sheltered areas where mangroves can regenerate naturally. The mangroves increase flood protection and allow sustainable aquaculture practices that provide income and food for the community. Right now, mangrove seedlings have started to emerge. Although land subsidence is limiting mangrove restoration, the permeable structures have stopped coastal erosion in this area. Building with Nature Indonesia, a unique project in which the close collaboration with the local community and nature sets the example for other communities coping with coastal erosion.
More than 60 DUTIP alumni have been visiting Rotterdam to learn and to train in the field of water management, how to create a resilient city.
Halo semua, pada kesempatan kali ini saya akan menjelaskan tentang program kemitraan antara dua operator yang difasilitasi oleh Asia Development Bank, yaitu UPTDPAL Disperkimtan Kota Bekasi sebagai operator air limbah domestik di Kota Bekasi, dengan Waternet Belanda sebagai operator air limbah domestik di Kota Amsterdam, Belanda. Program kemitraan ini meliputi 3 aspek. Yang pertama, peningkatan manajemen administrasi dengan memperbaiki data-data administrasi yang terdapat pada web desk, server, dan peningkatan pengelolaan keuangan. Aspek yang kedua, peningkatan manajemen sumber daya manusia, di antaranya peningkatan cara pemeliharaan dan operasional instalasi pengolahan lumpur tinja, menjaga baku mutu pengolahan, dan pemahaman terhadap pentingnya sebuah keamanan bekerja. Keamanan bekerja tidak hanya fokus kepada perlindungan diri sendiri, tetapi memastikan bahwa lingkungan di tempat kita bekerja memberikan keamanan yang baik saat berlangsungnya pekerjaan. Ketiga, merevisi dokumen peta jalan sanitasi Kota Bekasi yang telah berakhir pada tahun 2019 menjadi dokumen peta jalan sanitasi tahun 2021 dan 2025. Melalui program kemitraan ini, dokumen yang disusun lebih lengkap dan lebih baik. Hal ini didukung pula oleh keterlibatan lembaga di luar pemerintahan, di antaranya IWOS Plus, UNICEF, dan World Bank. Dari 3 aspek yang menjadi fokus utama program kemitraan, menjadikan program kemitraan merupakan contoh terbaik untuk Kota Bekasi dan Indonesia. Saat ini, Indonesia mulai mencoba menjalankan program serupa untuk beberapa daerah di Indonesia, yang menjadikan UPTDPAL Disperkimtan Kota Bekasi merupakan salah satu mentor. Negara Indonesia yang berasaskan ketuhanan Yang Maha Esa membuat kesehatan masyarakat merupakan hal utama dalam pembangunan. Salah satu mendukung kesehatan masyarakat adalah perbaikan sanitasi. Keutamaan kesehatan masyarakat dapat dilihat dari rencana pembangunan jangka menengah Indonesia dan Bekasi. Terima kasih saya ucapkan kepada Asia Development Bank dan Waternet Belanda atas terlaksananya program WOP ini. Dan kami berharap program kemitraan ini dapat terus terselenggara di Indonesia untuk mewujudkan cita-cita bangsa Indonesia, yaitu meningkatnya kesejahteraan atau kesehatan masyarakat. Terima kasih.
Well, thank you very much. I think we should actually give another round of applause for everyone for this first successful session, and also the latest introductory video that gives another new nutrition to our minds, to our thinking, to follow then the next session on the panel discussion on water resilience. I mean, Ruard, we are so enriched by many important information and also challenges as well, introduced in the first session, the importance to integrate actions into development planning, challenges to observe climate adaptation in many different perspectives, social ecological solutions, and also towards the economic resilience, and how science and also research can contribute to the effort as well. So we will now explore further to today's panel discussion focusing on water resilience. If I may, I would like to introduce how the panel will be conducted. We will have 4 panelists who are very well acknowledged in their field of expertise. Each of these panelists will present around 5 minutes on their thoughts, and hopefully their thoughts are quite provoking for all of us. They are from academia, civil society, government, and private sector representatives. And then we will make space for the voices from the grassroots, a couple of fishermen in the challenging environment in North Jakarta through a short video, which will be introduced shortly afterwards. The panelists will first be invited also to respond to the video, and then we will follow by discussion by every one of you who participate today's winner panel discussion. So without further ado, may I now firstly invite one of the representatives from academia and civil society, Dr. Dian Afriani. So Dr. Dian Afriani is the co-founder and the current senior researcher of Lokahita, the Research Center for Ecology and Geospatial. She's a very young and passionate scientist and also practitioner in the field of disaster risk reduction and climate adaptation, and she actively supports local government to internalize and mainstream environment carrying capacity, disaster risk reduction, and climate change through different and strategic environmental assessment. So let's now hear from Ibu Dian.
Thank you, Irina, for a nice introduction. I will share the screen first. Okay, thanks for a nice introduction, Irina, and having me here to share some thoughts. Good afternoon to panelists and participants. In this event, allow me to share how to reframe urban green spaces planning for flood protection using socio-ecological resilience. Why focus on flood protection? Because floods are among the global extreme weather catastrophe, and its trend, as we can see here, are increasing. So, talking about socio-ecological resilience, conceptually, it's originate in system ecology when Holling challenged the fundamental assumption of stability and therefore predictability as the primary characteristic of ecosystems and their management. The first important shift was human and natural systems are conceptualized as interdependent systems and defined as one system. Social here is used as a general term that includes social, cultural, and economic systems. This shift gave priority to more adaptive modes of governance and attention to dynamic interaction between human and nature. One of the tools provided by SHARE is Ecosystem Services Framework, which we use to reframe urban green spaces planning for flood protection. Provision of urban ecosystem services are often influenced by socially constructed value of people with social, cultural, economic privilege. This condition emphasizes the need to understand the dynamic of socio-ecological systems in urban landscape planning. Since the 20th century, determining the size and location of urban green space has followed the minimum allocation standard. However, researchers argue that many local governments have failed to apply this standard because of development pressure which increase conversion of urban green spaces. Comparing to the standard approach, we advance the ES framework to examine the equitable distribution and resilient supply of flood protection in Bandung City. Spatial analysis on supply and demand of flood protection was based on watershed area. We use land cover-based method to illustrate supply and the IPCC risk framework to illustrate demand, which indicates number of vulnerable people affected by floods. This framework could facilitate decision-making in locating urban green spaces that need to be improved or provided based on the quality and demand of ecosystem services. The results suggest that the equitable distribution and resilient supply of flood protection have not been adequately considered in Bandung City. The disproportional allocation of green spaces that offer flood protection has led to inequitable distribution that affect the people who need it most. However, when there is no option to provide green spaces, measure on flood adaptation through improvement of water retention, drainage, sewage, and also building codes in flood-prone areas could leverage the co-benefit of green spaces provision. This effort is in line with resilient characteristics as such redundancy and diversity. So using ecological resilience as a tool, we could identify the driver of challenge and use them to formulate recommendation for solution intervention. In urban landscape, co-benefit between mitigation and adaptation is highly recommended in reducing future flood risk. However, to propose specific measures, we need a set of data such as flood risk map, land subsidence, climate projection at local level. So for further research, there is an opportunity to advance ES framework in reframing urban green space planning, not only for flood protection, but for various benefits of urban ecosystem. Recommended policy and further research here are open the opportunity for inclusive cooperation between Indonesia and Netherlands in order to improve adaptive governance. Thank you. That's all from me. Irina, maybe we can elaborate later in the discussion session.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dian. This is a great introduction on the importance of this holistic approach to socio-ecological resilience. Our next speaker is Dr. Djoko Triharyanto, ecological economist at the Agency for Fiscal Policy at the Ministry of Finance. And from this presentation, he will look into what the government is doing also in terms of the economical and fiscal approaches is doing to support this approach. Djoko, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Watt. I will share my screen first, and a bit different with Ibu Dian. I will is already done. So we're talking about the policy formulation, and so I put a very provocative. Hopefully, I put a very provocative title, Good News from Indonesia. So what the government is already done, specific from the financing side. And I will start from the environmental performance, particularly from the Indonesian side. Like Ibu Menteri is already previous mentioned, we set our double ambitious target, through the SDG and also NDC in 2030. From the NDC target, we set reducing GHG emission until 29%, business as usual, means through the domestic mechanism, financial mechanism, and if the government support from the international aid, we can increase until 41%. And currently, actually, we are on the transition period from the optimizing government budget. We transform to the optimizing market mechanism, or we call it creating a very innovative financial scheme. And from the Internal Ministry of Finance, actually, we already have a very very best practices, and also several good lessons learned from the innovative financial scheme, such as we issued what we call domestic regular suku since 2030, and then 2018 we followed to issue global green suku 2018, 19, and continue last year actually during pandemic year. And then from the global green suku, we also diversify and creating another scheme, particularly when we're focusing on the a very potential domestic market, when we issued what we call domestic green suku retail. This suku retail mechanism particularly focusing on the individual person. And currently, in 2030, in 2020, 21, we are still on the final preparation to issue SDG bond. So this is quite interesting if Netherlands government would also support from the Ministry of Finance, because from those kind of modality, if we reverse from the climate new climate institute data, they put us from the medium classify if we talk about the climate change performance index. Yeah, so this is quite interesting for us, because if we compare with another country like Australia, like the European country, the Indonesian ranking is quite impressive. And this is consistent also if we talk about the bond spectator, yeah, like Ibu Menteri also mentioned before. If we compare from vivid economy data, February last year until February this year, Indonesia also making a good progress. If we talk about the positive contribution compared with the negative contribution, and also the final result of the green stimulus index. So from this quite impressive progress, we foster, yeah, particularly we foster from the planning and financing budgeting also. From the planning side, we put the first time, yeah, we put directly sustainability and also environmental protection to the national priority. If you looking from the medium terms national government planning, you can see directly terms of environmental protection and sustainability. And this is also linking with the regional planning document, because last year actually we have a big event, direct election, almost 280 regional governments. So you can imagine if we can transform their regional planning document, submit it with the sustainable issue and also climate change agenda. And from the financial aspect, actually, we are also trying to improve what we call public transparency and also public accountability through the very innovative tools, yeah. Because since 2016, actually, we implement what we call climate mitigation budgeting. And 2018, we add climate adaptation budgeting. And since last year, actually, we picked and also piloting on the several regional government, we started to implement regional climate budgeting. So this is quite interesting also. And the last slide, I will put another milestone for us from the Indonesian government. Yeah, I put green achievement because we already established a PPDLH. PPDLH is an Environmental Indonesian Trust Fund. And then we also, actually last month, Indonesia selected from the Climate Coalition Finance Minister and then the Helsinki Principle. Yeah. So Indonesia will co-chair, selected as a co-chair together with Finland government for the Climate Coalition Finance Minister. And internal from the Ministry of Finance, we are established NDA GCF, NDA Secretariat, and already started to deliver so many financial support from many stakeholders. And also currently we are on the preparation final to develop what we call PLU. PLU means Public Service Agency, talking about disaster management fund. So this is quite interesting. And in 2015, we also have a best practice lesson learned when we started to implement agriculture insurance, crop insurance, operated by Jasindo and also under the Ministry of Agriculture, still focusing on the paddy rice insurance, and also establishment of fisherman insurance, operated by the Ministry of Fisheries. And the last one, talking about the implementation of ecological fiscal transfer. This is quite provocative also if we talk about the ecological fiscal transfer, because we can divide it multi-level ecological fiscal transfer. Okay, thank you, Mr. Ruat. Yeah, thank you. This is my final slide.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Irina, our next speaker.
Okay. I'm just captivated with two previous panelists. It's so enriching. I mean, from the framework perspective of the SES or social ecological resilience framework, and then go to the governance of climate risk through financial intervention. That is quite impressive. So I'm also captivated with the two previous talk. Now, shall we continue to the next speaker or panelist? We have Ibu Anissa Triyanti. She's the representative from academia. She will share a bit about the solutions-based framework. She's a postdoctoral researcher on the water and climate governance and a lecturer at the Copernicus Institute of Sustainable Development, Utrecht University. She has been diligently a global advocate with more than 5 years of experiences, including with the United Nations intergovernmental processes, and she's also the co-founder of the United Nations Major Group for Children and Youth, or UNMGCY. She was appointed as the Young Scientist Representative for the UN Disaster Risk Reduction Global Science and Technology Advisory Group, or STAG. So Anissa, my dear friend, the floor is yours now for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Irina. I will try to share my screen first. I hope you all can see it. Can you see my screen? Yes. Let me put it in the, yeah, okay. Selamat siang, goedemorgen, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the nice introduction. Yeah, I would like to share some kind of helicopter view from my 8 years of research, doing study in the topic of climate governance and also disaster risk governance. We all know that climate change is a typical Anthropocene problem. Human actions become the center of a system change. And despite our effort to limit the global warming to 1.5 degrees, we are also still continuously experiencing climate change impact, including sea level rise and disasters. I think maybe some of you have read also this new study just published by Robert Nichols and other colleagues in Nature Journal, mentioning that people living in a subsided area experiencing average relative sea level rise up to 4 times higher. And this is very much the case also for Jakarta and millions of people living in the coastal area of Indonesia and of course also the Netherlands. So our ecosystem and also people's well-being are very much threatened by climate impact. There is no other way than to adapt and also to mitigate at the same time. So we all also know that climate change is a wicked problem. It's very complex, very systemic, and we often cannot identify what are the single cause or also root causes of the problem. So the uncertainty here is very high, and we don't know how much mitigation or adaptation is enough. And climate change is also very much a governance problem. So challenges include multi-level actors, diverse worldviews about the problem and also the solution, and the problem of fragmentation of knowledge, institution, and instruments. And climate change is also very much a political issue. So because it is very systemic and complex, we need an adequate inter and also transdisciplinary knowledge input to understand the boundary conditions for climate change adaptation. This is the core of the solutions-based concept that we at Water Climate Future Deltas Hub at Utrecht University are now exploring. So we need to look into different building blocks and interconnectedness between them, including the biophysical, socioeconomic governance and law. And we also need to consider the historical context, the current state and the future scenario. So only by doing that, we can demarcate a possible adaptation solution. And we also have to ensure that these measures, whether it is nature-based or hard infrastructure or combination, are feasible and also appropriate. So when we planning and implementing our efforts, we also have to avoid maladaptation. So how can we do that? I wanted to share some insights from my 8 years research evaluating governance responses to climate change with ecosystem-based adaptation. And these projects that I studied are mostly initiated by country partnerships. So one of which is also the project of Building with Nature, which is the partnership of Indonesia and the Netherlands in the MAP. And I found that maladaptation happens when we are too much focusing on innovative or technological aspect without full support of non-technological capacity. And also the risk of maladaptation is increased if certain measure does not fit for purpose or contextualize, and if there is a lack of inclusion or adverse inclusion, or if there is no norms that guide us to select this adaptation plan. So what are the lessons learned? So to effectively adapt to climate change, we of course need partnership, right? That's what SDG 17 told us. So our partnership is very much valuable between Indonesia and the Netherlands. It is a very nice title of this event, Journey of Hope, but I think Journey of Hope should be journey towards societal transformation. So we have to aim at the impact and also focus on societal transformation. And perhaps we need to go back again to discuss and selecting our normative principles as yardsticks. So do we want to implement measures just because it is feasible and economically beneficial, or also because we want to achieve common goal like sustainability or social justice? So in any cooperation, I think meaningful inclusion is very important. So both sides have to respect each other, of course, and learn from each other. But the learning here, I think, should be multi-directional. So it should be reciprocal. So not only how Indonesia can learn from the Netherlands, but also how the Netherlands and international community can learn from the case of Indonesia, at least to formulate future research education agenda or policy agenda. And lastly, I think the nature-based solution approach is really our opportunity. How can we live in nature? We are now very much understand the service of nature can give us, especially in this COVID-19 situation. So projects like conservation, restoration of wetlands, for example, could help us to deposit sediment and also reduce land subsidence impact. And I think the Netherlands is very good at this type of innovation. But what we often forget is that we, human, is actually the integral part of the ecosystem or nature. So we have to revisit again, I think, our role in protecting nature and also build human capacity and reduce vulnerability. And lastly, I just wanted to echo what everyone has said, that the youth role is very important, the young professional, the alumni. I'm also alumni of the Netherlands. And I learned a lot from this country's expertise, but now it is the time to contextualize our knowledge to the case of Indonesia, and I'm looking forward to hearing innovative ideas, and also for this panel, looking forward to our interactive discussion. Thank you very much. I hope that's clear.
Thank you, Dr. Anissa. This is a wonderful contribution, in which you not only bring in the well-known notion of the Anthropocene, of course, but also the importance of worldviews and your very concrete remarks about the title. We can get back to that in the discussion a little bit later. But first, I want to give the floor to Mr. Peter Letitre, an experienced international project manager and strategic advisor for integrated water management, who has worked for 35 years in more than 20 countries and the last 5 years in Indonesia also. And I assume he would be there if it hadn't been for COVID-19. So at least for now, Mr. Letitre, you're there virtually again, and we give you the floor.
Selamat siang, good afternoon to all, and thanks for this opportunity to share a few thoughts from the perspective of the private sector on climate adaptation. I'm working for Deltares, which is a knowledge institute. We are considered a private sector party, but actually we are a not-for-profit party that operates indeed as a private partner in a private party in Indonesia. I would like to share some lessons learned on climate adaptation work in Indonesia from the last 5 years and from my colleagues before. And focus on a few things that helped and also a few obstacles that we have been faced with in climate adaptation work. To give you an idea of what we have been involved as Deltares, we have been involved already for around 30 years on water management projects in Indonesia, starting with big river basin studies in the 80s and 90s, and from 2007 onwards on the big flooding issues in Jakarta. But that expanded also to other projects like the DEMAC, Building with Nature project, and later to the NCICD project, where I have been personally involved with, especially to look on the knowledge management aspects, the data and information issues, and specific issues such as the mitigation of land subsidence. What I see as a very important helping factor or to work effectively as a party in Indonesia is indeed the large extensive network of alumni that studied in the Netherlands. It makes such an enormous, it is such an enormous advantage to have, as was mentioned, 20,000 people that are aware on what is the Netherlands, the complexities of issues, modern innovative approaches and technologies and tools. So it makes much easier to make new partnerships with people and institutions in Indonesia that are familiar to the situation and that technology in the Netherlands. Another aspect which I think for business-to-business cooperation, of course, we have to distinguish between the big construction companies such as Van Oort, which we already have seen here, but also the consultancy firms and the knowledge institutions such as Deltares. I think business-to-business cooperation could not have been as effective without also the knowledge-to-knowledge cooperation. And to that respect, a very important project that we have been involved with for the last 10, 12 years is the joint cooperation project between Netherlands knowledge institutes such as ITC, Wageningen, the KNMI, the Dutch Meteorological Institute, Deltares and Wageningen University, and with its counterparts in Indonesia, such as BMKG, BIG, LAPAN, PUS-AIR, BPPT, etc. So this knowledge-to-knowledge cooperation has been very instrumental in indeed creating the knowledge and to better understand climate change, but also understand ways to adapt to climate change. And I think the DEMAC, Building with Nature project, where the big EcoShape consortium was involved in, is a very concrete example of how important business, knowledge, academia, and also the local people through local NGOs have to work together to really understand the system and also see the complexities, because what was said by my predecessors, my former speakers, climate change adaptation is really a very complex issue. It requires technical issues, but also governance and social inclusion, and that can only be brought in by broad partnerships with people that really understand local conditions. A few obstacles to finalize. If we really see the long trajectory from ideas to development of strategies and conceptual approaches to practice, we see that it is a very long road, and sometimes the implementation is not coming as fast as we would hoped. And that is because the complexities of decision-making. Decision-making requires consensus in Indonesia. And that means that, parties have to agree with each other. And that requires also good sectoral coordination and cooperation, which sometimes is a challenge. And for the rest, we see that it is very important that knowledge needs to be further developed at different levels, at local level, but also at the national level, at the provincial level. So knowledge cooperation remains important. And that is sometimes also complex because knowledge institutions cannot always participate in external finance projects. So that's why the accumulation of knowledge within companies and knowledge institutes is sometimes hampered by the fact that people cannot be involved for longer term on the same subject. Well, these are some of my considerations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Teacher, for these very smart remarks and important issues. And I think the issue of the financial consequences will immediately be taken to heart by Joko, who will, with his colleagues, look into those kind of obstacles. What I like specifically is how you, on the one hand, say that this multi-stakeholder approach means that within Indonesia and within the Netherlands, we have to cooperate with the private sector, with academia, with government and local communities, but also between the two countries, knowledge to knowledge and business to business. And together that makes a very strong network of all the partners necessary to make this implementation faster. Maybe when we start the conversation with the four panelists, I can ask you for brief responses on this one question. What did you hear in the various contributions that makes this truly a journey of hope? I mean, it's very simple to make it into a journey of despair, speaking about the future and furthering climate change. But what did you hear that makes it a journey of hope? What is hopeful in the conversation so far? If you can just give us a very brief remark for this further conversation. Dr. Dian, maybe first, what did you hear as a journey of hope?
Okay, thank you, Ruart. So I think we can see hope in the horizon. At the national level, government Indonesia has already have a policy on climate adaptation and mitigation. Among other things, there are NDC, National Determined Contribution for Indonesia, and there is already also NDC for adaptation, and also low emission development strategy. And the most important things that I would also to address is about how to build to implement those national policy at local level. There is quite a challenge, but also there is a hope because there is a program on budget tagging, green budget tagging that initiated by Pak Joko here. There is also progress in local level.
Okay.
But to build relation of trust between various actors, I think we need to enable symmetric information between actors that would help in building relation of trust. And therefore, the policy implementation of One Data Indonesia is crucial. It could
it's not only hope, but hope is also built by trust and bridging the national and the local level. I keep it a little bit short because we have more speakers and lots to discuss still. Ibu Anissa, what you already spoke about societal transformation as the concrete version of hope.
Yeah, I think we can just see from our day-to-day experience during COVID-19, you see how adaptive humans are. We thought that we're gonna break down and lay flat on our face, but actually we're trying our best to overcome this together, right? This is a hope. And I also see, like, we all see the commitments starting from global to regional to national and local level, that they are really willing to take actions to achieve Paris Agreement, SDGs, and their framework, and also leadership from our young people. So from the young, yes. And I started teaching also this period, and I see our students, despite this crisis, are still very much willing to study about sustainability and really wanted to learn about how they can tackle future problems, including climate change, disaster risk. Yeah, that's my quick answer.
Thank you. That's a wonderful answer indeed. Pak Joko, you already spoke about the good news, which I think is a synonym maybe of the hope. Can you say a little bit about how this includes also the cooperation with these local communities?
Yeah, in our perspective, hope is our ultimate weapon. Yeah, so hope is we keep our belief that we can do better for the better future, to change better future for our next generation. But hope is required collaborative action among multi-stakeholder, and the final the ultimate idea is hope required the government reform to build the multi-stakeholder trust. That's my opinion, Ruat. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Letitia, after 35 years in advising in water management and so on, has your hope increased over the years or has it decreased?
It has increased, and also working after 5 years in Indonesia, I see that knowledge is really increasing. I think we have developed for the last 10-12 years through this joint cooperation project an enormous amount of new tools and information, better understanding on climate change. And what we also see that because of this cooperation, the knowledge institutes in Indonesia are also working more closely together and are also sharing their tools and information. So that is a real good sign that multi-stakeholder cooperation and knowledge cooperation is improving. I also very much like the DUTE projects. So the projects that really engage the involvement and the young ideas of young people that are working at in this case the province of Jakarta and the city of Rotterdam. And I also see that city of Jakarta very much stimulates also this kind of cooperation, and that the people that have studied in the Netherlands really are challenged to apply their knowledge in Jakarta. So that is also a real sign of hope for me, yes.
So not just faraway ideas, but you see very concrete examples of hope. That's nice to see that. Some of you have already mentioned the importance of connecting to the local community, and that's why we also want to bring in the voices and the perspective of people on the local level, on the grassroots level, in a small video.
Bau anyir di Gang Kerang, Muara Angke, Jakarta Utara menyeruak dari setiap penjuru. Nelayan di kampung ini sok kerang hijau untuk dijual di pasar ikan Kamal Muara di pesisir Jakarta. Mereka juga biasa membawa pulang berbagai jenis ikan untuk kemudian dijajakan di sana. Tapi memanen ikan kian sulit sejak proyek reklamasi Teluk Jakarta berjalan 2013 lalu.
Saya nelayan tradisional itu perahunya sebesar 10 GT ke bawah. Karena nelayan kecil itu tidak bisa untuk ke tengah. Perahunya pun tidak besar gelombangnya karena harus dilawannya juga dengan perahu-perahu besar kalau yang di tengah. Ikan-ikan yang kami tangkap itu suka ada, suka nggak ada. Jadi kesukaan kebanyakannya sering tidak datang daripada datangnya. Karena menunggu air bersih, air jernih kembali. Apabila air jernih kembali, maka ikan berdatangan kembali.
Kampung-kampung nelayan di balik pulau buatan terjebak dalam belenggu kerusakan lingkungan yang mengancam tempat tinggal dan mata pencaharian mereka. Ekosistem pesisir rusak, diganti gundukan tanah. Banjir rob pun semakin sering merendam pemukiman mereka.
Kalau untuk telekomunikasi selama ini belum pernah pengembang untuk sosialisasi ke masyarakat yang kena dampak ya. Nggak tahu kalau masyarakat yang hanya atas nama masyarakat untuk mewakili masyarakat. Mungkin ada oknum begitu, mungkin bisa ada. Jadi untuk yang kena dampak kayaknya nggak ada untuk sosialisasi.
Thank you very much for the video. I think it's very inspiring to pick up from what Anissa had mentioned about the multi-directional learning processes. And it is very, very imperative and important to incorporate communities' worldview as well in our discussion. And if we observe closely to the video that was just being played, there is Pak Khalil Charlim, traditional fisherman, and also Pak Iwan Charmidi, chair of traditional fishermen community in Muara Angke, North Jakarta. They said the stream to fight against is so strong, probably that also a metaphoric meaning of how they continue the struggle daily on daily basis. And this seems to be still quite a huge gap. And I would rather ask perhaps to Pak Joko and also to Peter Letitre, how do you respond to this gap of the need for clean water? The fishermen still felt underrepresented, misrepresented. How do you make into a more concrete kind of action at the local level to make changes of what Pak Khalil and Pak Iwan had shared in the video? Anyone could go first, either Pak Joko or Peter.
Or Pak Peter first, because some distortion music, I think my background. So Pak Peter, you can ask first. You can answer first.
Pak Peter?
This is really a very important aspect, the involvement of stakeholders in big infrastructural projects and developments such as ongoing in Jakarta. And I must say that the NCICD project, where I have been involved with many other parties, Indonesian institutes, but also Korean and Netherlands companies, is really an example where we learned that social inclusion and stakeholder participation is a crucial issue. And when you really talk with the stakeholders and the people and the fishermen, you will understand that sometimes they understand why certain measures are necessary. But while listening to them, you could apply their insights and knowledge to make the impacts on their work much less than it would be if they would not have been consulted. For example, when building dikes along the coast in Jakarta, which is of course a necessary measure because the northern part of Jakarta is several meters below sea level, so it needs to be protected by dikes or other measures. But by making simple adaptations to these dikes, for example, by creating places where the fishing boats can be parked effectively, or where people can look and climb up the walls and reach their boats. These are already measures that would make the exception of this kind of measures much better for the people. So that is why people need to be involved.
The experience of Pak Iwan Karmidi when he said that the communication was lacking, does that ring true to you? Does it happen often?
Of course, in a very big city such as Jakarta, it is not always easy to engage all stakeholders. But for the big plans, it is of course possible to invite fishing communities and the representatives from the fishing communities. But that sometimes is the task of the ministries or the province of Jakarta. And it cannot always be enforced. And the cooperation between the province and the city of Jakarta and the national ministries sometimes requires also that one of the parties is really stimulated to think of stakeholder engagement.
Thank you very much, Pak Peter. Yes, indeed, it's a huge challenge to ensure that all voices are represented fairly and in justice. Pak Joko, please share your very brief comments on this. There's still a huge gap here.
In my personal opinion, so we could see that we have two basic problem. The first problem is regarding on the engagement process, and the second problem related with the support and also communication lagging. So better if we can reducing this lagging both from the engagement and also communication through increase the communication first with the fisherman community, represent fisherman community, and then we can increase the participation also from the local government, because under the Jakarta province. And if we consider like what I already present, actually we can reinforce through the Minister of Fisheries, because they already have a BLU. Yeah, BLU. The fishermen community can also access the BLU services, and then they can also link with what we call a fisherman insurance, perhaps. So the challenge is how to reduce the communication lagging and also the engagement lagging. And this is the opportunity from the multi-stakeholder participation, I think.
Yeah, Robert, do you have further, points of views regarding to these issues?
Well, maybe following up on the point that was made by Peter Letitra on implementation, the long time that it takes from ideas to concrete action and all the levels involved. I was wondering, especially also to Dr. Dia and Dr. Anissa, when you speak about this social ecological resilience, what can we do to speed up implementation and make concrete actions rather than having it last for many, many years, which we simply cannot afford? How can we speed up implementation of change?
Yeah. Okay. From the concept of socio-ecological resilience, that it's clear that we need to investigate the interaction between human and nature. Human and nature become one system, but also in human system there is also interaction between different actors. But what from my experience, sometimes we are from scientists or maybe government, when we come to the local community, sometimes we use the language that couldn't understand by them, the hard language, the scientific language, or the bureaucrat language. We need to start to use the easy language that understood by them, and also touch the impact of what we're gonna develop, like program and so on, to their livelihood. So if they understand, maybe we can also collaborate with them and also facilitate the local community to find alternative livelihood if their livelihood is taken by the adaptation project, that the benefit is bigger than their livelihood there. So I think we need to start to using easy language that they can understand, and also facilitate them to find alternative livelihood. I think it's like that.
Thank you very much, Diane. I think it's very crucial to probably transform the way we communicate, as mentioned by Pak Joko. The engagement processes are much more, it's a longer process. It's not a one-time, one project kind of process. And I think we take note on that very, very dearly. I noted that there is a hand raised by one of our audience here, Ibu Susan Kiara. Would you step up and speak your question, please? Please be invited. Mbak Susan, are you still there? No, maybe not. Maybe not at the moment. My probably following question would be, okay. So there's a question there. Oh, Ibu Susan Kiara cannot turn on the audio. So please, could Mas Dito or Mbak Inti activate the audio of Mbak Susan? Before that,
otherwise maybe we can type the question because for time reasons we already have video.
Yes.
Ibu Susan.
Hi. So I'm here actually with Pak Khalil. He's coming from North Jakarta. So I think I would like to give a brief response on the situation actually. Nowadays, because of the adaptation project, they really become more burden to put their boat. So I think in terms of development, actually maybe the development itself supposed to be ensure that the fisher folk still able to access their waters. Actually, nowadays, in terms of climate crisis after the project was happening, there is a really massive flooding in this December and January. And then we do believe that the climate crisis under this big project will be continuing in the next year. So the question is, if we are now talking about the development, actually the basic question that we need to raise, it's about what kind of development itself that human need today. It's really important because as the result of to answer the adaptation issues, we still believe, Pak Khalil still believe that 17 artificial island is not the answer. What you have to think, it's about, you discuss about water, land subsidence and so on. You have to think about it more further, but by building the 17 artificial island, I think that's not the best solution. If we talk more about it, you cannot keep continuing to planting mangrove every years, but at the same time, there is a lot of mangrove coverage decreasing because of extractive and exploitative project in a lot of area in Indonesia. And then you have to remember that the reclamation project is not only in Jakarta. There are 41 reclamation projects in Indonesia, which is took a lot of sand in our waters, in our ocean. So if we talk about a climate crisis, the thing is just not to ensure these people are going to be involved in the discussion, but how we are going to ensure that their basic right, their constitutional right, will be provided by government and also by another actors. And I think I just want, yeah, one last thing is,
please.
We need to commitment to stop the exploitation in our ocean and stop affecting people from their livelihood. I think that's the message. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Ibu Susan. And terima kasih juga untuk Pak Khalil Charlim. Very important to hear his story and the concreteness of the topic. And I think it underscores what we have been hearing, the importance of working together, also of taking seriously the technological aspects, but also the economic and the local, and perhaps also the cultural meanings of the situation and the concrete context. Irina, we are already running towards a close. We have a few minutes, and given that everybody is very busy, of course, I think we have to honor the time reasons. For the last reflections, Irina, what is the most important things that you bring from this conversation?
Yes, I think in all of our efforts, we do have an enormous goodwill in our hand, in our mind, in our energy. But I think we also need to appreciate the complexity behind, and that whatever we are intervening, it always have or it always resonate with following consequences to other societies, as researchers, as private sectors, as academia, as government. And we also have always the power and ability, if we are very, very hopeful, to be involved in this transformation process. So this refurbished kind of approach and in the communication process, again, has been mentioned, is a very good way indeed to continue. And it's a long journey. We understand it's not a shortcut. There's no shortcut. But also, Roard, I would like to also thank to all of the participants who actually post their comments and also their questions that are already being answered. And they are very indeed very much important information and questions. But further on, if you still have more questions to the panelists, I think the panelists agree as well to share their email if you'd like.
Yes, those we will also disclose. I think for me the most, well, I think there's a sobering contribution by Ibu Susan and Pak Khalil and Pak Iwan. Tells us that even with all our good intentions, we have to really make sure that we hear the voices of the people who are most directly involved and most vulnerable in this case. I also heard about the urgency that we feel and also the hope and the lessons learned that are there. I like the idea of building with nature, which I think is a very strong concept, and especially also building with people, I think is an important one for both for academics and for people in governance and in technology to remember that it's always about people. And for this holistic view of social ecological resilience and the normative principles that were mentioned, values like justice and care and empowerment, I think those are maybe also a next step in building forward, or maybe to put it differently, to change the narrative. Because what we need is a narrative of hope, is a journey of hope, is a story of a world we can envision, in which indeed we take seriously what happens to people on the ground, how they experience what we're doing, and that also translates into the technological solutions that we will also really need for adapting and mitigating the situation. So yes, a huge thanks to our four panelists, to Peter Letitre, to Diane Afriani, to Agnisa Trianti, and to Joko Tri Haryanto. Your contributions were very welcome and important. Our academic leads, Philip Ward and Pajan Sopaheluwakan, who contributed to organizing all this. The staff from NUFIC who played a major role in this. The high-level guests that we already thanked before, the two ambassadors, Mr. Feins and Mr. Mayervas, the two ministers, Ibu Siti and Ibu van Nieuwenhuizen, Mr. Marcel Beukeboom and Dr. Rwanda Agung Sugadiman. Thanks to all of them. Thanks for all of you who have been participating and listening. You will find all the information on winner.or.id. You will find a survey that pops up on your screen. Please help us to fill that in and rate so that we can also use your feedback on that. There's also a reminder here for the winner alumni challenge. 10th of April is the deadline. Don't forget to send in your best ideas and to build this network that also Peter Letitre was pointing to. The importance of alumni, the importance of young people, the importance of the new generation to meet the climate change challenge. Irina, it was a pleasure to work with you on this webinar, and thank you to all of you.
Likewise, Roard. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pak Roard. Thank you, Irina.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.